Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, Peter, there was an interesting article yesterday in, of all places, Buzzfeed. Not a kind of outlet that we frequent, the place which published, of course, the Steele dossier. Nonetheless, this was a very interesting article about the famous, quote, kidnapping plot, unquote, of the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer. There have been articles in the past about this strange plot, and people such as at Revolver News had raised questions about it, and because it seemed much like more or less instigated by the FBI, who as is their wont, kind of entrap a bunch of people who are financially vulnerable, mentally vulnerable, emotionally vulnerable, and they kind of push into a terrorist plot. So we had a lot of that after 9/11, and Glenn Greenwald has written about this, that somehow these Muslim plots to create some terrorist act were really they were just preying on young foolish people, and who would never have done anything had it not been for FBI agents egging them on. So anyway, so this has been published before, but it was unusual to find this in BuzzFeed, which is generally kind of left of center and pro FBI, pro national security state. So it's a very long article, very, very detailed, well worth reading. I'll just read a couple of excerpts from it, which get a sense of what we're really dealing here. It says, the government has documented at least 12 confidential informants who assisted the sprawling investigation. And then the trove of evidence they helped gather provides an unprecedented view into American extremism. And then he says, an examination of the case by BuzzFeed News reveals that some of those informants, acting under the direction of the FBI, played a far larger role than has previously been reported. Working in secret, they did more than just passively observe and report on the actions of the suspects. Instead, they had a hand in nearly every aspect of the alleged plot, starting with its inception. The extent of their involvement raises questions as to whether there would even have been a conspiracy without them. Then they talk about an informant from Wisconsin who helped organize a series of meetings around the country where many of the alleged plotters first met one another, and the earliest notions of a plan took root, some of those people say. The Wisconsin informant even paid for some hotel rooms and food as an incentive to get people to come. So you get a sense here that this isn't just passive observers. People say, well, there's some an unpleasant little plot being hatched here. These are people actively roping people in, working out a plot, getting people involved in this plot, in order to do what? In order to reinforce an FBI narrative. We know what the FBI has been for a number of years, which is dangerous. Far-right extremism is stalking the land. They're all perpetrating terrible extremist terrorist plots. Well, it's clear from this that there aren't these plots, what plots there are actually being instigated by the FBI. And it really goes back to the question that America can't progress as a country until it gets to grips with the pernicious presence and influence of the FBI.
Absolutely. And one of the things that's to BuzzFeed's credit, I never thought I would say this because I'm not a fan of the outlet, right. But the writer, a good writer, and I really appreciated in the article the afterglow. The January 6th is always right with you when you're reading that article, okay? And this is this pernicious political play that we're watching unfold in front of us. It's truly, truly disturbing. Now, I mean, I would like to hear. I mean, what this article is sympathetic to the fact that the moving agent of all of this was the FBI. Okay, funding it, helping them organize it, identifying people that could be involved in it, roping in, as you said. This is very, very dangerous. There was a young man a few years ago, a Muslim man. I don't remember his name, but he had some mental health issues. And the same kind of thing was a bombing. I was planning a bombing in a public place. And the line of the whole story that sticks in my mind to this day is that he told his FBI undercover handler that he had to ask his mother if he could do it. So, I mean, this is the type of person that they're roping into these things here. The things that, as reported by Buzzfeed, by the people that were allegedly involved in this and were charged in it, saying awful, terrible things is not illegal. No. It's just not illegal. Okay, you can say the worst possible things, and it's the First Amendment. Okay, and the article, again, being very well written, and I will take it at face value. As you pointed out, a lot of people that had a lot of difficulties in life. Okay, and there was this article starts out with a Iraq War veteran that felt like that he'd been dealt a very a bad hand, and a lot of other people are involved in it. These people deserve our sympathy more than our hatred, and you shouldn't have the FBI leading them by the nose into something that will just absolutely catastrophically destroy their lives. And on top of it, insult to injury to show how wonderful the FBI is. This is really, really disturbing.
Yeah, destroy their lives. I mean, basically they were roped into a plot, and then as punishment, they will spend the rest of their lives in prison, even though it's quite clear they wouldn't have done anything had it not been for this FBI agent. So what do we call this? What do we call a country in which essentially you have agents of the government infiltrating all sorts of dissident groups and manipulating them in order to be able to arrest them, imprison them for many years? We call that a police state. That's what a police state is. A police state infiltrates every part of society, particularly in those elements of society in which are dissenters, people who oppose the government, oppose the institutions of government. You infiltrate them, and then you try to get them to commit crimes for which you can then send them away for decades. That is a police state. And what the FBI has been doing for years now is essentially implementing the apparatus of a police state.
There's nothing wrong in, as far as I'm concerned, for national security issues, is to try to understand what's going on in these groups. I think that's fair game. But I mean, being an active agent player in creating a plot, well, that is way, way over the line.
Right. Exactly.
It's very, very dangerous. Okay. And again, I hate to say it, but we've mentioned these things in the past. I mean, these FBI leaders, the ones that are moving the pieces on the board, they're looking for the next promotion. Look what I did. I busted this. And no, you didn't. You were part of the potential crime, and you want to be rewarded for it. And have people that are, again, read the article. These are disadvantaged people. I think that's being objective. Okay, these are disadvantaged people that were being lured into something they wouldn't have done on their own.
No, exactly. They were disadvantaged people, manipulated people who are also entitled to their views. I mean, if they think, America's a terrible place run by, horrible, bureaucrats, horrible oligarchs, whatever, they're entitled to their views. It is not appropriate for government to infiltrate these groups for the sole purpose of getting them to commit crimes that they can then arrest them for and imprison them for decades, because that is truly the hallmarks of basically an authoritarian government. And now I'm getting more and more of this. And now, of course, where is all this going? Well, what about January the 6th? I mean, the government is being very, very secretive about those 14,000 hours of video footage about the events of January the 6th. Instead, they're sort of releasing dribs and drabs, a couple of minutes here, a couple of minutes there, so that they can reinforce their narrative. No one else, none of the defendants, none of the defendants' lawyers are allowed to see this footage. Even the media are saying, hey, we want to see some of this footage, because you may well find that some of the people who were the noisiest, loudest instigators, hey, let's go break into the Capitol building, were working for the FBI.
Yeah. And is considering what we know at this point, okay, I have to assume that is the case. That's why they're not saying it. They don't want to show what level of involvement they might have been aware of. Their active involvement, I'm not saying that because I have no evidence of it. However, it's reasonable to say, given what we just talked about, this case of this potential kidnapping, is it appears, at least to me, to be a pattern, right. Okay? And was the same thing repeated when it came to January 6th, okay? Yeah. That is a very fair question to ask. And it seems to me, since, it's been over 6 months, okay? Right. All of this evidence is apparently being collated. And they're so tight-lipped about it, okay? Again, the lack of transparency raises suspicions, okay? Yep. And considering how much Facebook and Twitter are fully cooperating with the authorities here, did they know a lot of things in advance? Were they able to connect dots, okay? Were they able to find impressionable people? I have to assume that there's something like that going on here. See, as far as I'm concerned, that my supposition and suspicion has to be disproved.
Right. No, I think so, particularly as the organizations that the prosecutors and the FBI keep referring to, these Oath Keepers, the Boogaloo Boys and all that, these organizations had to have been infiltrated for a very long time by the FBI. So it is absolutely inconceivable that they didn't know what was going to happen on January the 6th. And therefore, it is inconceivable that there were FBI informers were not actually actively taking part in some of these protests. Let's put it politely. So yeah, there's absolutely this. It is a pattern. We saw this in the aftermath of 9/11, and people go back even longer than that. They go back into the 1960s and so on. This is standard operating practice for the FBI, and really it is truly disgusting. I mean, it is disgusting when you get people to commit crimes that they would not have committed crimes otherwise. Now, normally, it would, by normal way of doing things, that's it. That's enough to get you off, acquitted. Hey, this was clearly entrapment, instigation, whatever you call it. But apparently not here, not
well, I mean, there's one thing in infiltrating a group and trying to figure out what they're talking about if they're a potential threat. It's another thing when you say, I can cough up $4,000 for ammunition. I mean, whoa.
That's exactly. That's what I mean. It's like, exactly. That's not observation. That's instigation. Yeah. In other words, yeah. Hey, well, I've got lots of money. I'll just I'll pay for your airfare and for your hotel room.
Yeah. So you can and one of the major informants, they helped him finance his house, gave him a car. I mean,
yeah.
You have to wonder if you have a FBI informant. I mean, and then it turns into a lucrative behavior. I mean, I'll keep going, keep paying me. Okay. I mean, it's the wrong incentive here. All right.
Yeah. No, that's right. But again, it's just amazing that the judges put up with this. Judges seem to sign off on this. And even more disgusting, we've had a whole pattern for the past year or two of FBI people caught committing crimes just simply walking away. You know, I mean, with Kevin Kleinsmith, tap on the wrist. You know, he hasn't even been disbarred. I mean, you fake documents for a FISA court, and you're not even disbarred. I mean, what do you need to do to get disbarred? And of course, McCabe, who was fired by the FBI because he was actually lying to investigators. You know, nice little cushy gig on CNN, pension intact. I mean, you know, the standards they apply to themselves, you know, the standards that they apply to others.
This is, I suppose, the biggest disappointment for me. I mean, people doing these things, it doesn't surprise me because it builds careers and, you know, and it pads budgets for the FBI. Look how great they're doing and all that. But what's most disturbing is what you just said to me, is that I never would have thought that this ideology would penetrate into the legal system.
Right.
Okay. Because it's basically saying, well, you know, the FBI probably, you know, was playing a little bit of dirty pool there, but, you know, these are bad people. No, that's not how it works. Okay. You have to present a compelling case, and these defendants have a right to defend themselves. Okay. But no, because you're in the 3%ers, which I only today found out what 3%ers actually means. Somehow you're already guilty of something. You're guilty of some kind of illegal behavior. No, a group like that has a certain ideology, and you have the freedom to express it. Okay, if you agree or disagree with it. Okay,
well, that's exactly.
It shouldn't be the FBI and the judicial system to determine what you can say.
Exactly, that's exactly it. We know what a crime is. A crime, you know, is an act of violence. You stealing property, damaging property, violence against another person, expressing views that the government doesn't like. That is not a crime. And what the FBI doing is nicely kind of mixing up these two notions so that we say, yeah, these people are criminals. They hold bad views, and these bad views lead them to commit crimes. No, it doesn't lead them. You, the FBI, lead them to commit these crimes.
Well, the interesting thing is, you know, growing up in California, which is very diverse, it's a really blue state, but there's a lot of diversity of opinions. And I would hear, you know, being a university student in Davis, California, right side of Sacramento, I mean, that is like, you know, Mao Zedong would feel comfortable living there. Okay. But you go 10 miles out, and it's a very different place. And you would hear things, you know, like, you know, it's the government's fault, and the government's not legitimate, you know, and the Second Amendment would be mentioned all of the time and all that. You know, what am I supposed to do? Given what they're doing now, should I call the FBI and say, somebody said the government is illegitimate? Right. Is that what they want us to do now?
Right. Yeah, no, and that very point you just said, which is that they are demanding that these defendants, the January the 6th defendants, they actually acknowledge, you know, Biden won the November the 3rd election. They have to acknowledge this. You know, you have to say, and if you don't say it, you go into no bail, indefinite detention. So I mean, that's, again, that's a view, that's an opinion. People should be entitled to that opinion, whether Biden did or didn't win the November the 3rd election. It should not be the standard on whether somebody is granted bail or not.
After the November 1960 election, there were people openly in print saying something went wrong in Illinois. Okay, something bad happened there.
That's right.
Were they put in jail? Were they charged? Were they called an insurrectionist?
That's exactly.
When Donald Trump, when they were convening in Congress with the Electoral College, when the electors were certifying the election, there were people that disagreed, George.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Refused to certify. They say they should not be certified. It happened in 2017. It happened again George Bush in 2005, happened again with George Bush in 2001. So yeah, there's a you know, a real pattern. But again, you know, this is something that the media just simply, you know, drumbeat that nobody had ever questioned the certification of the election until Donald Trump in 2021. Yeah, it's just, they just conveniently forget all the times that the Democrats have questioned it.
You know, it used to be not long ago when you would hear what you and I probably would think is crazy talk, but you and I would just default, well, that's your opinion.
Right.
Okay. And you're no threat to me.
That's right.
And I'm certainly no threat to you.
Right.
But now there must be conformity. Okay. You know, what was that grandmother that, you know, the first one to be convicted, you know, they made her watch documentaries and read books. Now what? Now there's going to be a quiz. Okay.
That's it. Yeah,
what
exactly.
is this?
Here's your
Re-education?
That's right.
Is this Pol Pot?
That's right. Yeah. Here's your reading list. Yeah. No, that's right. But you know, again, I mean, it just shows what, you know, the coercive power of government. I mean, you know, if the prosecutor comes to you, hey, you want to take your chances at trial, you might be sent to prison for a good number of years, or do you want to say, yeah, you know, I'm guilty, I'm very, very sorry, and I will read these books and then take a quiz afterward? I mean, people say, okay, particularly if you don't have much money for a good attorney, yeah, not a bad deal.
And, you know, we can maybe make it even a sweeter deal if you give us the names.
The names, exactly.
Give us the names.
That's right, exactly. The snitch culture. Yeah, yeah. That's how you create.
They want. That's what they want. Okay, and that's why, you know, not only are they waiting for the 2022 election, is they want to see how elaborate this web actually is, George. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, everybody, we're gonna keep an eye on this here. This is, again, go to BuzzFeed, take a look at the article. It's very, very interesting. Okay, so we're on the Gaggle, is on local, so go to thegaggle.locals.com. George and I are doing interviews via Zoom, and we have merchandise up at the Gaggle store, really cool stuff. Q&A is in the making, and we have live streaming within our grasp. We're very excited about that. And last but not least, George?
Well, we've got the tip jar, so please fill up the tip jar generously, because there's a lot of snouts in the trough, you know, want to get into that jar, and the fight is getting very bitter. But seriously, you know, whatever you can help, you know, would be most appreciated. You know, we don't have big backers, you know, knocking on our door and writing out checks, so we rely on the generosity of the fellow gagglers. But remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. We'll be back soon. Bye.